Good day, students. Today we are going to have a reading lesson in our storybook, The Reading Street, about the colors red, white, and blue, the story of the American flag. And as we know, the colors red, white, and blue is represented through the American flag and occurs on there. And this symbol represents a lot. And as we know, America is famous for a lot of things and had influenced many countries before. So this is a story about the history of America, where it all began, and a little bit of insight of where they come from. So this is basically an American themed story, and we are just going to have a look at the words that will occur, the frequently used vocabulary words. It's America, which is a country that it represents, the flag with the blue and the white and the red colors. Birthday, flag, freedom, nicknames, stars and stripes. And stars and stripes is another nickname for the flag. The stars and stripes, as America is very famous for the flag with the stars and stripes on it. So we're going to have a look at this story. And listen to it, and I hope we listen carefully, because there's a lot of important history in it. And as we know, America also has big influences in the countries that we live in, such as Saudi Arabia and so forth. So here is the video representation of the story, and I hope we listen carefully and that we will enjoy it.
Red, White, and Blue. The Story of the American Flag by John Herman. Illustrated by Shannon Sternweiss. Genre: informational text often gives facts about real people, places, and events that reflect history or the traditions of communities. Look for facts as you read. Question of the week: what traditions and celebrations involve our country's flag?
We all know the American flag. Its bright colors fly at baseball games. It flies at 4th of July parades. We even see it on clothes. Our flag has lots of nicknames, like Old Glory and the Red, White, and Blue. Sometimes it's called the Stars and Stripes. But where did our flag come from? Who decided what it would look like? The truth is that no one knows for sure. Back in the 1700s, America didn't have a flag. It didn't need one. It wasn't even a country yet. It was just 13 colonies. The colonies belonged to England. The English flag flew in towns from New Hampshire to Georgia. But as time went on, the 13 colonies didn't want to belong to England anymore. Americans decided to fight for their freedom. A war began. It was the American Revolution. Now a new flag was needed, an American flag.
The original 13 American colonies: New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia.
Who made our first flag? Some people say it was a woman named Betsy Ross. Maybe you've heard of her. Betsy Ross owned a sewing shop in Philadelphia. She was famous for her sewing. The story is that one day a general came to see her. The general was George Washington. He was the head of the American Army. General Washington wanted a new flag. It would make his soldiers feel like a real army fighting for a real country. He wanted Betsy Ross to make this flag. He drew a picture of what he wanted. Betsy Ross made some changes. Then she showed the picture to General Washington. He liked it. Betsy Ross sewed the flag, and that was the very first Stars and Stripes. That is the story, and it's a good one. But is it true? Betsy Ross's grandson said it was. He said that Betsy told him the story when he was a little boy, and she was an old woman of 84. But there is no proof for this story. So what do we know for sure? We know that during the Revolution, the colonists used lots of different flags.
Betsy Ross, George Washington, first American flag, flags from the Revolutionary War.
But once the colonies became the United States of America, the country needed one flag, the same flag for everybody. So on June 14th, 1777, a decision was made. The flag was going to have 13 red and white stripes. The flag was also going to have 13 white stars on a blue background, one for each of the 13 colonies. Now the United States had a flag. Congress had picked the colors and the stars and stripes. But Congress did not say where the stars and stripes had to go. So the flag still did not always look the same. People could put them any way they liked. Sometimes the stripes were up and down, like this. Sometimes the stars were in a circle, like this. But nobody minded. Up and down or side to side, the stars and stripes still stood for the United States. Over the years, the flag became more and more important to people. In 1812, the United States was at war with England again. British soldiers came to America. They sailed up our rivers. They marched down our streets. They even burned down the White House, the home of the president.
Flag from battle at Fort McHenry.
On the night of September 13, 1814, British soldiers bombed a fort in Maryland. All that night, a man watched the fighting. His name was Francis Scott Key. He was afraid. What if the American soldiers in the fort gave up? But in the early morning light, he saw the stars and stripes. It was still flying above the fort. He knew American soldiers had won the battle. Key felt very proud. He wrote a poem about the flag on the fort. The poem was "The Star-Spangled Banner." Later, the poem was put to music. This song about our flag became a song for our whole country.
Francis Scott Key.
The flag that Francis Scott Key saw had 15 stripes and 15 stars. Why? Because by then there were two more states, Vermont and Kentucky. Our country was getting bigger. People were heading out west. In time, more places were going to want to be states. Soon there would be too many stripes to fit on the flag. Congress had to do something. So in 1818, this is what was decided. The flag would go back to 13 red and white stripes. And in the blue box would be one white star for each state. Every time there was a new state, a new star would be added.
American flag in 1814. First 15 American states: Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Kentucky.
At last, the stars and stripes looked the same everywhere it flew, and Americans were proud of their flag. They took the flag with them as they moved west. The flag crossed the Mississippi River and the great grassy plains and the Rocky Mountains. It made it all the way to California. More and more states were added to the country, and more stars were added to the flag. By 1837, there were 26 stars on the flag. By 1850, there were 31.
American flag in 1850. The United States in 1850. This map shows all the states as of 1850.
One country, one flag. But then, in 1861, something happened. Our country split in two. 11 states in the South broke away from the United States of America. They started their own country. It was called the Confederate States of America. Abraham Lincoln was President of the United States. He said all the states had to stay together. War broke out, the Civil War. It was a very sad time in the history of our country. The 11 southern states stopped flying the Stars and Stripes. They had their own flag. In the North, some people wanted 11 stars taken off the Stars and Stripes. But Abraham Lincoln would not do that. He said the states would get back together. He was right. The Civil War ended in 1865. The North won. And the United States was one country under one flag again.
President Abraham Lincoln.
On June 14, 1877, the flag had a birthday, a big one. It was 100 years old. All across the country, people had picnics and parties and parades. June 14th became a holiday, Flag Day. Today, our flag has 50 stars for the 50 United States of America. Some flags are huge. One weighs 500 pounds. It is flown every 4th of July from the George Washington Bridge. The American flag flies in towns and cities from coast to coast. And that's not all. In 1969, 2 American astronauts were the first people ever to land on the moon. The astronauts took lots of moon rocks back to Earth. They also left something on the moon, the Stars and Stripes. And do you know what? Our flag is still flying there.
And with that is the history of the American flag, or as they call it, the Stars and Stripes. So now we have a bit of background on where the flag comes from and the history behind the flag and how interesting it is, because we know America is a very powerful country, and they have obviously improved a lot and developed a lot through the years. So with that said, and seeing that we have time constraints, because the video of the clip of our book was a bit long, we have homework, and it is in our not the Reading Street book, in the Readers and Writers Notebook on page 494. Readers and Writers Notebook on page 494, and there are the answers for our activity on page 494 in our Readers and Writers Notebook. I'm going to make it quick, so I hope that when you see this, you can write it down or take a screenshot, because this is in the end of the broadcast, and I will see you for our next lesson.